My name is Rick Tucker. I am a veterinarian in the U.S. Army Veterinary Corps. I'm a colonel in the Veterinary Corps, so that's the sixth rank in the officer. So if you don't know military ranks, most people know general. So that's the rank below, right below general. I've been in the Army for 16 years, and I've gotten to go do a lot of things in the Army. Been able to travel all over the world. Army's doing veterinary operations. And I've been able to go back to school and get retrained or get additional training in a lot of things. Currently, I am actually at a training or a school assignment right now. As you go up in rank at different levels, they call it professional military education. And this isn't veterinary specific, but I can bring in some of the things that I know or have learned about veterinary medicine to this education. But I'm at one education level called Senior Service College, and I'm attending the National Defense University. That's on Fort McNair in Washington, D.C. It's just like maybe a mile away from the U.S. Capitol. And it's actually, the fort's pretty old, historic fort. It's the place where they still have the building there where they had the trial for the conspirators who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. And that's where they hanged the people actually right there. So it's an older fort, neat area to go to. And I'm at a school called Eisenhower School. It used to be called the Industrial College of the Armed Forces. And its goal is to help bring the military and the industrial production of the United States together so they understand each other, and so we can make sure that we can resource our national strategy for war efforts in the future. So right now I'm there. So I'm learning about how industry and the military work together. And I'm really looking at that from a food perspective, because food production is an important topic for me. My first assignment was it's called Joint Base Lewis McChord now. It's in Tacoma, Washington. And I was assigned as the officer in charge, or the boss. I ran a veterinary clinic there, and it was predominantly a small animal clinic. And I was responsible for civilian pets who would come to this veterinary clinic, and also for the military working dogs in the area, in the bases surrounding the area. And then did food safety. We do a lot of food work also. So I was doing food safety audits at different locations for food that was being procured for the military. And then I went from there. I augmented a deployable unit in Afghanistan, and I did more food work there and some work with livestock there, and took care of working dogs there too. So I ran a veterinary clinic on a little base a FOB, so forward operating base in Afghanistan, in eastern Afghanistan. And after that, I came back and I was at the 91st Civil Affairs Battalion, and they do work in Africa. At the time, they were doing Africa and Afghanistan, but I was mainly focused on Africa. And I helped train medics to work there, and then I got to go to Africa several times to help them work in remote regions of Africa, to work with livestock herding populations in Senegal, Mali, Mauritania, Chad, and Burkina Faso. And then the military sent me back to school, back to UC Davis. And I did a master's in preventive veterinary medicine and a master's in international agriculture development. Then I came back in the Army, I was all in the Army the whole time, but came back to a regular assignment, the 95th Civil Affairs Brigade, and I had kind of more global reach. I'd spent a lot of time in Mongolia and Chad at that time. Then I went and I was the command veterinarian for U.S. Army Special Operations Command, and I was advising the commanding general on the Special Operations Military Working Dog Program, on training the Special Operations medics, and then helping with some biosurveillance planning. And then I was the commander of a veterinary unit that was a deployable veterinary unit, and we sent people all over the world. So I had people over there when Afghanistan closed down. We sent them Central South America, Africa, the Indo-Pacific. Then I went to the Defense Health Agency, the Public Health Directorate, and I was involved in setting up what we call global health engagement for really for the whole military, but focusing on the veterinary side of it. And now I'm here at the Senior Service College. My next job is going to be at U.S. Army Forces Command, and it's a veterinary specific billet, but I'll be getting a little bit out of my veterinary lane. I will be doing global force management for all medical assets for the U.S. Army. So if there was a need for a field hospital to go somewhere in the world, for example, I would be identifying what field hospitals are trained and ready to go, and helping to identify that they've got the right equipment, and then get the orders and stuff for them to go and deploy. But it's a veterinary job, and I'll still be focusing on the veterinary side of things, but it'll expand beyond veterinarians to general medical. And how did the military influence my path? I think that I didn't really have a desire to do any international work or development work before I joined the Army, and then I ended up doing that, and then I really enjoyed it. So I think it's really pushed me towards that aspect of it. And while I was doing food production medicine when I was in private practice, I liked that, but I wasn't as informed on the food industry as far as how the industry works, and as far as supporting our troops overseas, and food, especially food safety, because the Army does a lot of food safety and defense. So I've gotten a lot more interested in that. So I kind of did it backwards. I had no intention of going into the Army, but then the Army, there was an article that came out in the Journal of American Veterinary Medical Association that the Army needed veterinarians to come they needed livestock veterinarians or large animal veterinarians to come help out with some work they were doing in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I left private practice to do that. So I had already gone through veterinary school, but then once I joined, there was something that was available to me called the Health Professions Loan Repayment Program. And I just applied for it, got accepted. There's no guarantee you'll get approved, because they might only have, I don't know, let's just say round numbers, 50 of these slots available. And if 60 people apply, only 50 will get it. I don't know how they're choosing. Maybe it's first come, first serve, but most of the time, I think everybody who applies gets it. And so what they do is they have a cap on how much they'll pay back, and over a certain number of years. I'm not 100% sure what the cap is right now. I mean, it's a pretty good amount. For me, I think they ended up paying off like 35, or they paid back the rest of my loans. So $35,000 or $40,000 a year. The first 2 years, I think I got all that, and the last year I didn't have to get that whole amount. But they just pay a certain amount per year. They don't. I mean, when I say they pay $30,000, they do, but they take taxes out of it, which still reduces your student loans significantly. So say the military is paying $30,000 towards your student loan, maybe only 27 or 25 or something of it will actually go directly to your student loan, and then 5,000 of it gets held out as for taxes. So because it's a payment, so it's part of a salary. So but that still gets you down significantly lower. So it's pretty easy to get that paid off. And I was able to pay that off quite a while ago now. Well, obviously they have to get experience at some point, but maybe they don't necessarily do that until they're in college. Because some people, like I grew up in the city. For me, I think college is extremely expensive now. And so even for my own kids, and I've got 4 boys of my own, we're telling them, hey, we're going to have to figure out a route to get you school paid for as much as possible. So if you're looking at Army options, so my first son, I've got, like I said, 4 boys. One is 20 years old now. He graduated from high school, and for a while his plan was to try to get an ROTC scholarship. So a lot of colleges have an ROTC program. It's kind of military program on the college and on the campus there, and they have scholarships available, up to 4-year scholarships, but you have to apply for them ahead of time. There's no guarantee you'll get a 4-year scholarship. You can get a 3-year, a 2-year, or a 1 year. or no scholarship. But that is a route to getting a commission in the U.S. military and potentially a scholarship. There are also options. I mean, people can go to community college, get some stuff knocked out at relatively lower cost, and then transfer over to where they maybe try and get an ROTC scholarship at that point. Let me talk about what the plan is for my third son. He's just in middle school now. He wants to be a large animal veterinarian, and his plan is to go directly from high school and enlist in the Army. Now, when you enlist in the Army, you get, if you serve your service obligation honorably, it was like 3-year service obligation, that initial contract, you get right now that you get the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is really, really good benefit. Now that they pay for 36 months of tuition. So that's 4 9-month school years. They're not paying for summer school if you're doing that, but the regular 9-month years they're paying for. And then they also pay you a housing allowance for what a sergeant would get in the Army. So it's pretty phenomenal. Basically, I have a full ride scholarship for serving 3 years in the military. And I think what that does, having commanded young soldiers now, I see that it also disciplines them. So people can come out of high school and not necessarily have super self-discipline, because they're going to leave home probably and go off somewhere else. They don't have anybody looking over their shoulder. If they go to the Army, they've got someone looking over their shoulder, but helping them develop that discipline for a while they're away from mom and dad. And I think it's a great development opportunity for young people to do that. And then I think then it makes them also more competitive if they wanted to try an ROTC scholarship, or they could just go and do college and have their college paid for 4 years. And then there is also a program, if they get into veterinary school then, called the HPSP, the Health Professions Scholarship Program. And that will pay for 3 years of veterinary school and commissioned as a second lieutenant, and also getting a stipend as a second lieutenant while the person is in veterinary school. So they would apply for it at the very beginning of their freshman year of veterinary school, and then they would actually, if they get accepted, they would receive it their second, third, and fourth year. Now, not everybody gets it. It is competitive, but that's where I think if someone goes into the Army for 3 years, that's going to make them more competitive, because any boards that are sitting to look at the applicants for that HPSP scholarship are going to see someone who has service time in the Army and right away say, okay, this is a person who knows what it means to be in the Army. There's someone that we're more interested in. So I think that would give them a competitive edge on that scholarship program. And I know some people would say, well, if I do 3 years in the Army, that's setting me back. I'm going to be a little older when I become a veterinarian. I know a lot of people who it took them 3 or 4 years of application to get into veterinary school. I think that depending on what you do in the Army, you could really set yourself apart from your peers, make you more competitive to get into veterinary school. In the Army, if you go in the Army, each service has its own reasons to join, but for the Army, they actually have a veterinary corps. And so there are veterinary technicians in there. You can sign up to be a veterinary technician. You can also sign up to be a medic. I think being a medic would be a great route for someone to go into, because they'd come in, they get general medical training, and just working out. You can be working outdoors in a field environment, just kind of the way you would as a large animal veterinarian. I think someone who wants to be a livestock vet would actually like being a combat medic, because they would get that experience of just working outdoors in those scenarios and training environments. And you come away 3 years later, and they could come out and have that medical training in their back pocket, and then apply. That's going to be there when they apply to veterinary school. Like, hey, this person did 3 years as a combat medic in the Army. And then, like I said, they usually are going to be very disciplined when they start their studies, and they're driven to become a veterinarian. They probably can get really good grades in college. And having all that experience, plus I assume that, they're going to be working somewhere to get veterinary experience while they're in undergrad. That sets them apart from their peers and make them more likely to get in on a first attempt. That's my opinion, but I think there's pretty good reasons for that.